Hello and welcome wherever in the world you are. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar titled Finding Employment for Youth, delivered by Next Stop Canada, funded by Immigration, Refugee, Citizenship Canada. So before we get started, we just wanted to introduce ourselves. So my name is Stephanie. I'm a Youth Information and Referral Specialist here at Next Stop Canada. I started my employment journey here in Canada at 16 years old, and I know landing your first job can be challenging, especially if you don't have any experience, but there's many supports along the way to help you. So I'm happy to be here today and share my experiences with you and hope you do find this webinar helpful.
Hi everyone, my name is Kasturi and I'm also a Youth Information and Referral Specialist here at Next Stop Canada. And just like Stephanie, I also started working in Canada at the age of 16. Additionally, I also worked in the employment sector, serving both newcomers and youth in the past, and I'm very excited to share my knowledge regarding employment with you all.
Hello, my name is Itzel. I'm as well a youth information and referral specialist. And well, my first-hand experience as a newcomer to Canada began 3 years ago when I arrived here to complete my education. And since then, I have to come to learn many things regarding working in Canada. I found a lot of support to guide me during this time, and in turn, I would love to help you navigate this challenging yet rewarding journey and share my experience and knowledge in regarding today's topic. So before we start today's webinar, I would just want to go over a couple of some housekeeping rules for you. So the webinar will run for about an hour and may go over depending on how many questions we get at the end. Then if you have a question, please type it in the question box found on your screens. All the questions will be answered at the end of the webinar during the question and answer period. And if you have a question specific to your situation, please ask one of our information and referral specialists via email or live chat. They will be happy to assist you. And then this webinar recording will be uploaded within 48 hours after this presentation has been concluded, and you can view it in our platform by going to the video tab and then select webinar recording. Okay, so if this is your first time joining us for a webinar, just a few instructions on how to use GoToWebinar. So if you click on the little orange arrow that shows in your screen, it will hide or unhide the GoToWebinar window. Then you can choose to connect via your phone and you'll be given a number to dial. Also make sure that whatever audio device you're using to listen to this webinar, whether it's a headphone or speakers, please make sure to select the type of audio that you'll be using. And lastly, if you have any questions, please enter them in the question box to be answered at the end of this webinar. And now I will pass it on to Kasturi.
So Next Stop Canada offers many services. As you can see on the screen, we have live chat, which is available from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time from Monday to Friday. All members should have access to their personalized settlement plans as well, which are provided to you by your information and referral specialist. Additionally, we do offer live webinars every Thursdays from 9 a.m. and some Wednesdays also starting at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. You also have access to online resources such as videos, blogs, vlogs, and much more. So please go through the Next Stop Canada platform to benefit from all the available resources. Next is the Immigrant Forum, where you can ask questions regarding different settlement topics, and someone will get back to you within 2 to 3 business days, as well as adult mentors who have gone through the same experience as you and have now successfully obtained a job in their field and are ready to answer any questions you may have. Lastly, we have the youth program for youth between the ages of 12 to 19 who will be moving to Canada. They will be paired with a youth mentor who has also previously been a newcomer to Canada and can help them make that transition easier for the youth. So on the next slide are a few reminders for all members. Please make sure to fill out all the details on your profile, basically like your employment background, education, destination city, and whether or not you have children and what ages the children will fall under by clicking the boxes beneath. This helps the IRS determine what services would be suitable for you based on your needs. Also, by answering the welcome emails that are sent by your information and referral specialist, because this also helps us modify your settlement plans to better assist you by providing you the most accurate and most necessary resources. Additionally, when your settlement plan is ready, please make sure to go through it and take your time to read it and look at all the resources that are available to you, because all the IRS work specifically to make sure that they're targeted based on your needs. Also, if you have any questions in regards to your PR, work permit, processing times, or sponsorship and immigration, please contact IRCC directly, as they would be the best people to give you the most appropriate answers. And I'm going to pass it on to Stephanie, who's going to go over some of our social media platforms.
Thank you, Kasturi. So we do want to take this opportunity to also invite you to join us on social media. We have a Next Stop Canada closed Facebook group, as you see on your screen. This is exclusively for our Next Stop Canada clients. Here you can join and interact and network with other newcomers like yourself who are preparing to move or have already made the move. We also have a Next Stop Canada Youth closed Facebook group. So as Kasturi mentioned, if you have youth between 12 to 19 years old, we also invite them to join our Next Stop Canada Youth Facebook group, where they can interact and talk with our Next Stop Canada mentors. And we also have a Next Stop Canada LinkedIn page. If you would like to follow us on there, you can see on your screen. And last but not least, please follow us on Twitter to receive live updates. Our Twitter handle is @NextStopCanada. So I'll pass it on to Itzel now.
Thank you, Stephanie. Okay, so let's go over today's agenda. So first we will talk about what is considered youth employment. Then we'll talk about working in Canada, in which we'll discuss about the legal age to start working, your rights and responsibilities, the types of employment, and what you need in order to apply for jobs. Then we will talk about how to gain experience, followed by the types of student jobs that will be available for you, and then lastly, we will move on to talk about job readiness, in which we will learn about how to find jobs, how to apply for jobs, and the importance of having an outstanding resume, cover letter, references, and also the interview. And finally, we'll close by talking about some resources and employment tips. Right, so let's start by describing what is considered youth employment. So, well, employment refers to a job in which a person gets paid. And in Canada, youth have the option to pursue employment and gain experience at a young age. It is not mandatory, and there are certain regulations or rules that the employers and employees should follow under the laws that the Employment Standard Act dictates. However, youth can start to work as early as age 12, but this varies from province to province, which I will mention in the next slide. In addition, each province has their youth employment programs and resources that some of them cover up to the ages of 29. So as I mentioned before, the legal age to start working is determined by the provincial government. You can see in your screen some charts that shows the legal age to start working from each province. Moreover, the provincial government determines the legal age in order to start working depending on the work sector. So for instance, in Alberta, employees that are under 12 years old and under may only be employed in an artistic endeavor, whereas youth from 13 to 14 years old, they might be employed to work as a clerk or as a messenger in an office or retail store. They can work as a delivery person from like small goods or merchandise in retail store, or delivering flyers, newspapers, and handbills. And in general, all provinces require that people under the ages of 18 can work only if the type of work does not compromise their education, if the work does not adversely affect their health, physical, or moral development, if the job is being supervised, although supervision can vary depending on the age and the job description, and also if the job respects the limit of hours that the youth can work. So basically, all provinces have a common goal to guarantee the primacy of education and to keep young people in school during the years when basic knowledge is acquired, as well as protecting their development and their health and safety. This also includes that the majority of jobs that youth under 18 can work on cannot be done after 11 p.m. and they cannot work during school time. And lastly, youth under the ages of 15 might require a parent or guardian consent before starting to work. So moving on to the next slide. Now I'll talk about rights and responsibilities of young workers. So I will start by mentioning the rights. So as a young worker, you have the same rights as any other employee. This means that you have three basic rights. One, the right to refuse dangerous work and know that you are protected from reprisal. Two, the right to know about workplace hazards and to have access to basic health and safety information. And three, the right to participate in health and safety discussions and health and safety committees. In addition, any employee is entitled to have a minimum wage. However, each province has their minimum wage establishment, and some provinces have their separate minimum wage just for students. Also, employees are entitled to have overtime pay, public holidays, vacation with pay, notice of termination or termination pay. In other words, as a young worker, you have the right to refuse dangerous work, to report unsafe work practices, to follow the health and safety procedures, to refrain from harassment or violence in the workplace, to ask for training if you don't know how to do something, also to work safely and encourage others to do it as well, to use equipment, safety equipment and clothing, and to inform your supervisor if you have anything going on that could affect your ability to work safely. So now, what are the responsibilities of a young worker? Well, while you're working, you should follow all safety rules, report any hazards, and protect yourself. Within your first days of starting your job, your supervisor should go over your duties that are part of your job description and respond to any queries that you might have. It is your responsibility to do those duties. You're responsible for doing the job that you were hired to do within the schedule or time that previously was set. Also, if you decide to terminate your work with the employer, then you should let them know, usually within a 2-week notice. And now let's go over the types of employment. Okay, so there are different types of employment arrangements in Canada, and it is important to understand the difference between each other because you might encounter these types of employment. I will briefly mention them since later on Stephanie will talk about it. So the first one is permanent work. And usually this goes along with some employability benefits like health insurance, pension plans, etc. Also, there is no time frame of employment. This means that there is no deadline of termination of the contract. The second type is the contract work. This has already a set length of time that the employee will work for a specific employer. The employment status might vary depending on the working hours, so this is divided into two types. One, the full-time work that normally the employee will work around 30 hours per week, and the second one, the part-time work, which mostly is around 20 hours per week. For instance, if the contract established that the duration is over a year, within 37 hours a week from Monday to Friday, then this will be considered a full-time position in a contract type. The other one is called casual or on-call work, and this means that the employee will work only when needed, often on short notice. And the last one is the seasonal work. This is a type of work that, as the name mentions, goes along with a certain period of the year, and the employee works possibly long hours for some, but not all months of the year. For example, landscaping, tree planting, which happens during the spring and summer, opposed to jobs like snow removal and skiing instructions that are during the winter time. And now let's discuss about the things that you need in order to apply for jobs. So I will briefly mention what do you need in order to apply for jobs in Canada. Some of these topics we will talk about it further in this presentation. So the first thing that you need is your resume and cover letter. So the resume is a document in which you state your education, your experience, skills, etc. And the cover letter is a written document in which you will explain why you are the best candidate for this position. The second thing that you will need is your social insurance number or SIN number, which is a 9-digit number that you need to work or have access to the government in order to work or have access to the programs from the government or benefits in Canada. So you can obtain this SIN number by going to a Service Canada. Then you will also need a bank account. In order to have your check or payroll deposit in your account. So if you're under 18 years of age, then your parent or guardian must open the bank account. You can visit the government website on how to open the bank account in Canada, which also will be in your handouts. Another thing that you might need are certifications. If it applies, because certain jobs require to complete a certificate to ensure that the employees know the do's and don'ts of the job. It is also a way to demonstrate that you know your rights and responsibilities of the type of job that you will be doing. For instance, in Ontario, to work as a waiter or a waitress, most of the restaurants will ask their employees to have their certificate from SmartServe, which is the provincial regulatory body of servers. Another example is that in the provinces of Manitoba and Saskatchewan, youth under 16-year-old are required to complete the Young Worker Readiness Certificate course in order to work. In addition, you might need a parent or guardian consent to start working. This will be required only if you are 15 years old, although remember that the age range might vary depending on the provincial law, so it might require it even for youth over 15. And lastly, you will need your references, which is a paper in which you state the contact information of your former employers or the information of a person that you have worked with or other. And the reason why employers ask for the references is because it is an opportunity for them to get the sense of the candidate's performance on the job and personal qualities. And now I would like to ask Stephanie and Castry, how did you guys apply for your first job?
So for me, I remember going online and I was searching for jobs to see who was hiring. And so then I made up copies of my resume and I went in person to different stores and just dropped them off. So I did not get the first jobs I went in for an interview for. I did about 3 interviews, and after that, I landed my first job ever at a large, well-known department store. That's how I did my first job here in Canada.
Yeah, just like Stephanie, I also went in person to distribute my resume. I didn't really get many interviews in the beginning, but over time I did. However, I didn't get those jobs. And then afterwards, I knew that my sister worked at a coffee shop, and she actually spoke to her boss and he got me an interview, but I wasn't able to work at the same location as her. However, he had several locations, so it worked out, and I ended up getting a job there part-time.
Thank you, Stephanie and Castry. Well, as you can hear, there are different experiences, and thank you for sharing. So now we'll pass it on to Stephanie, who will talk about how to gain work experience.
Thank you, Itzel. So just going to move on to the next slide. If you're a newcomer student looking for your first job or a recent graduate, there are different ways in which you can gain experience for the first time and start building your professional resume. So here on your screen, you can see the different types of ways you can gain experience. So the first one is volunteering. Volunteering is a great way to gain that first time experience, and there are different ways in which you can do it. So you can start by looking for volunteer positions online, similarly to how you would look for a job using resources like Volunteer Canada, which is a national volunteer site, or province-specific sites like Spark Ontario, where there's a whole list of volunteer postings that you can apply for. Another option is to volunteer directly with your local community organization, which you may already be involved in. So this can be something like your school, a religious or cultural center, and this is another great way to gain that first time work experience. Lastly, you can also go directly to the website or the establishment of the specific company or organization that you may be interested in volunteering for. So just as an example, if you're interested in working with animals, let's say, you could volunteer at an animal shelter or a well-known organization like the Society for Prevention of Cruelty in Animals, known as the SPCA, to gain that experience and start building your professional resume and what interests you. Also keep in mind to treat any volunteer position as you would any real job. This would be a way for you to build positive professional connections that you can use later on as references. And this can also lead to employment. So volunteering is a great way to get your foot through the door, and that might lead to future long-term employment. Also, be sure to stay committed to the volunteering position, be on time, be responsible, and complete your volunteering tasks. In addition, this will also be good practice to apply for other jobs where many volunteer positions will go through similar processes of holding an interview when you apply, giving in your resume and a cover letter. So it's a great way to start that practice of job search for when you're looking for paid employment. So another way which you can gain work experience is through internships. So many internships may be available through your school if you're in post-secondary, and they may be related to your field or education, designed for you to gain experience in your specific field. So an internship is an opportunity offered by an employer to potential employees called interns to work for a firm or company for that fixed period of time. And interns are usually undergraduate students, and most of the time internships can last between 1 to 3 months or even longer. There's some year-long internships as well. So for internships, they can either be paid or voluntary. This being said, it's always a good idea to look for those paid internships so you can make some money and gain that experience at the same time. Lastly, there's also trainings that you can do in order to gain work experience and start building your resume as well. So you can complete professional development courses online or in person. You can take courses related to your career goals in your specific field. You can use websites like Udemy, where you can find both free and paid online courses, or lynda.com is another resource available through the public library or LinkedIn, which offers different professional development courses online. Many universities or colleges also have options for these courses as well. You can attend webinars and live workshops. This will all be really helpful for you to start gaining experience and prepare you for that job search. So lastly, I would just like to mention another way to gain experience is to do some job shadowing. So if there's a teacher or a friend who's already working and you're interested in that field, you may want to ask them to shadow them for a day so you can see what their workday is like if it's something you're interested in, and you can start learning the necessary skills you will need in order to apply for that job. So I have a question for you both, Kastri and Itzel. Do you have any examples of volunteering, internships, or trainings that you did as a youth that helped lead to employment?
Yeah, so I actually started volunteering when I was in high school, mostly because we needed to complete the 40 hours of volunteer hours to graduate. But it definitely led me to understand what my interests were and where I would want to pursue a career in the future. So when I went into post-secondary education and I volunteered at that stage, I had a more clear understanding of where I wanted to go. And that's why I'm now working within like the nonprofit sector.
That's great.
And similarly as Castery, I also used to volunteer. Well, I was a camp leader, and we used to do like workshops in training for outdoors activities, and that led me to positions during the summer in which I will work with kids and teenagers.
Thanks so much for sharing. So you can see that gaining experience in volunteering is a great way to start a job search and looking for a job. So the reason why I wanted to outline how to gain work experience is because it's important for many reasons. First of all, it allows you to gain and develop new skills and experiences. And you'll also have the opportunity to learn what your strengths and weaknesses are. So you can see what you're good at, what you might need to work on, and also if you like something or what you don't like. So this can help you when you're doing your job search and applying for jobs to know yourself better and know what types of jobs you want to apply for. Work experience also allows you to build your professional resume, as I mentioned. So this is something that all employers look for when you are applying to jobs. So it's important to gain experience in order to have something to provide when you go to an interview or submit your resume. It's also a great opportunity for networking and gaining professional resumes. So whether you do a volunteer, an internship, or any trainings or courses, you will meet new people that are within similar fields or interested in the same maybe job fields that you're looking for. So it's a great way for you to network and build professional resumes while you do this experience. So on the next slide, I just want to go over types of student jobs. So Ipsil did go over briefly different type of jobs. So more specifically, I want to go into the types of jobs that may be available for students if you're a student looking for a job. So the first one is summer or seasonal jobs. So this is a temporary or contract employment, which is offered over the summer or during a specific season, as Ipsil mentioned. It's known as seasonal employment and will last a couple months during the year. So if you're looking for a summer job, it's best to start looking in spring and start applying then. Or if you're interested in working during the winter holiday season, it's best to start looking for these jobs during the fall. So just as an example, during the summer as a student, I would work at an amusement park that was open from May to August and then go to school throughout the rest of the year. And also when I did begin working retail in that department store, I actually first applied during a seasonal work period. And so I was hired for the holidays when they need the most help. And then I was offered a permanent position once the holiday season passed. So these are great ways in which you can apply because these are high seasons where different organizations and companies may need more help. So you can apply to these jobs to gain experience, and they may lead to long-term employment as well. So another option that you can do as a student is student placement. So this refers to a year which is spent in an employer organization, usually between the second or final year of a degree course. So some placements may be paid again, and some may not be. And student placements will help you gain experience in your specific field that you're interested in or in the field that you're studying. Another great option is the work and study program. So this program assists students with the cost of post-secondary education, where you can work and study at the same time. So these jobs are typically offered through the university or college, and that's another great way where you can balance school and work if you need to do so. And then there's also part-time jobs as a great option for students. This is a form of employment that carries fewer hours per week than a full-time job, so you can work in shifts. So these shifts are often rotational. Workers are considered to be part-time if they commonly work fewer than 30 hours per week. And this is a great option for students as it allows you to organize your time and accommodate your studies with work. Then there's also paid internships, as I mentioned. So internships offer a way to gain relevant knowledge and skills required to succeed in a specific career field while making some money at the same time, whether it's an hourly wage, weekly salary, or over the course of the internship. These internships usually last longer than placements and are available to students as well. And lastly, I just want to mention freelancing as an option for student jobs. So freelancing is a person who is self-employed and not necessarily committed to a particular employer long-term. So freelance jobs can be as short as 1 day or two, but are a great start to building experience and references. Freelancing is also a great way which you can create your own schedule that works for you as a student. So some examples of this can be photography. If you like photography, you can start freelancing as a photographer. You can also do digital artistry, graphic design, or web development. So online is a great place where you can start freelancing and creating your professional experience. So I will pass it on to Kasturi now.
Thanks, Stephanie. So here are a list of things that you will need to do in order to prepare for your employment process. So it's always good to begin by job searching to get an idea of the type of jobs you will need to create a possible resume and cover letter for. So job searching also leads to understanding the types of jobs you may be interested in and will help you prepare for your interviews. Lastly, it's always good to have a list of possible references, as Itzel had mentioned earlier, and that you can use when you're applying for a job. In the next few slides, I'm going to touch upon each one in further detail. So when you're job searching, it is good to understand the different methods you can go about it. Job searching can be done online, in person, through the phone, by cold calling, at job fairs, and through networking. A lot of people prefer to job search online because it's easier and more convenient, but it is important to understand that online job search may not always be the most effective, only because of the amount of traffic and competition for jobs on online platforms. Some of the most used and well-known job searching tools online are LinkedIn, JobBank, and Indeed. LinkedIn is a professional networking tool, almost like Facebook. However, LinkedIn is used to network with different professionals, follow organizations, job search, connect with recruiters, and showcase your professional experience. As you see on as you see, LinkedIn can be used for many things, specifically to enhance your job searching. So this is a great tool to use if you don't already have a profile. Additionally, JobBank is another great tool. It allows you to conduct research on different professions. It also provides information regarding the labor market, which can help in understanding where most jobs are available. JobBank also has a search engine. However, it is most used for conducting research on current labor market trends. Furthermore, Indeed, like many others, is a job searching engine. It is one of the most used and well-known places to go when someone is job searching. However, it is not the only job search engine. There are many more just like it. It is important to keep in mind that the positive about it is that there are many jobs available through search engines. However, there are also a lot of people applying for jobs the same way as mentioned earlier. Hence why it is important to acknowledge the different ways to conduct job search by not limiting yourself to the most convenient way. When conducting a job search online, it is essential to know keywords that can help you narrow your search results. So for example, if you're looking for a job where you want to work with people, customer service is a great keyword search for you to type in, just so you can narrow it down to jobs that are specifically promoted to working with individuals. If you enjoy marketing or selling, then sales is another great keyword. Feel free to use more than one keyword to narrow your results further to your liking. This can help filter out unnecessary jobs and break it down into less options, so you are not just applying to anything, but specifically to jobs that meet your needs and ones that you like, and also filter out the ones that you don't necessarily need to be applying for. On the next slide, we're going to go over resumes. So a resume is a 1 to 2 page paper detailing an individual's qualifications, skills, and experiences. There are different types of resumes. However, the two most used ones are the chronological and functional. They both serve different purposes. For instance, a chronological resume is the most used and favored resume by most employers. It consists of your professional history listed in chronological order. This tells the employer about your experiences from the most recent to the furthest. In contrast, a functional resume can also be used if you lack experience and instead want to highlight your skills. This allows the applicant to use transferable skills they may have acquired while in school, clubs, sports, and much more. Usually for students who are starting their first job, a functional resume may make more sense to use as opposed to the chronological one, solely because of the fact that um, most students do not have any prior professional experience. In general, all resumes should include your name, contact information, along with your skills and qualifications, plus the list of professional experiences, any certification or education that you have previously gained, which can contribute to the job that you are applying for. Another thing to keep in mind when working on a resume is that it should be tailored each time to the specific job you may be applying for. Creating a general resume which you use to apply for all jobs is not the best way to go about your job search process, as employers in Canada like to see that the application you have submitted is specific to their organization and the requirements of the job posting. This helps you as a candidate stand out from your competitors who are also applying to the same job. In most cases, it is good to keep in mind that your resume is the first impression of you that an employer will get, and therefore it is essential to make sure that you secure yourself into the interview process by tailoring your resume. I understand from my previous experience working within employment services that many newcomers to Canada have different types of resumes. In some countries, it is natural for the candidate to add their photo on their resume while also including their age, marital status, and much more. However, here in Canada, these things are not needed on your resume, and to keep it strictly containing the information that I previously mentioned and nothing further. Please note that we understand that creating a resume can be overwhelming without an idea of where to start and what to include. So with that in mind, there are many employment services available to you all across Canada where they have trained employment professionals who advise you and review your resume while providing you the necessary feedback that you require to be successful in your job search. Close to the end of this webinar, we'll be providing you with some tips, and also there's a handout with resources that are available to you. For further information, please feel free to contact your IRS and they can help you get connected with an employment service that is closest to the location you would be moving to. So moving on to the next slide is cover letter. In Canada, you may need a cover letter when applying for a job. A cover letter is a one-page letter addressed to the hiring manager emphasizing the skills, qualifications, and experiences you have gained which transfer to the job you are applying for. The cover letter is also a great place to express your interest in the job by including something you know of the company. For most entry-level jobs, a cover letter may not be necessary. However, it is great practice to start writing one if you don't need, even if you don't need it for the job. This can help you to improve your cover letter writing skills for any future job that you may be pursuing, which requires you to submit a cover letter along with your resume. As you see on the screen, this is a template you can use to help write your cover letter. Of course, this is just a guide, but there are many different templates you can use by doing further research. It is evident that there's not much space, so the information that you do apply to your cover letter should be short and significant to the job you are applying for. So next we're going to touch on interview skills. So you may wonder why you need to prepare for an interview well before you have been given the invitation to attend one. This is a great question. Interviews come in many forms. For example, there are phone interviews, in-person interviews, panel interviews, and even group interviews. The reason why you should start preparing for one even before you get it is because if an application goes through and an employer calls you for a quick phone interview, you want to be best prepared. This happens often and catches a lot of people off guard. The best way to go about this is to understand when applying for jobs, to study the job posting and make sure to research as much as possible for any jobs you may be applying for. This can be done easily by tracking your job search through using a chart. That way, when an employer does call you, everything that you need is right in front of you in one page and ready to go. When you prepare for an interview, it is important to do your research. You can perform research by reviewing the job posting and be able to speak on each and every requirement that is listed. Also, research can be done by searching the company and learning about the history as well as the mission and vision of the organization. In addition, you could connect with someone already working there to get more information on the role and the company itself. Research is really important as it sets the tone for your understanding and knowledge, which will help build your confidence when it comes to the actual interview. The more you know, the better it is for you to apply during the interview stage. Interviews, as mentioned, come in different forms and styles. So a phone interview can be the first stage of the interview process where the employer quickly reviews your previous experiences or asks you a few general questions to see if they would like to further interview at the next stages of the process. Additionally, there are also in-person interviews which happen face-to-face, and these are usually the interviews many people dislike as it can be intimidating. However, it is great practice. In-person interviews come in different forms. For example, there are panel interviews and then there are group interviews. A lot of retail stores do favor group interviews where they have multiple candidates that attend an interview with the employer at the same time, and they have turns to respond to questions. Panel interviews are conducted by the employer where more than one manager or staff is present and asking questions to just one candidate. When being invited to an interview, most employers will let you know ahead of time about who will be interviewing you and what you will need in the case that they do not disclose this information. You can always ask them what you will need to bring so that you are well prepared for the interview. Furthermore, interview questions are also a good thing to prepare ahead of time. The best way to understand the type of questions that can be asked during an interview are by studying the job posting. If in most cases you can speak to each and every requirement and responsibility of the job, then you are set for success. Employers ask questions in two common ways. Some are general questions, for example, tell me a little bit about yourself. This is usually an icebreaker question, and it also helps set the tone for the remainder of the interview. Other types of questions are behavioral questions, which a lot of employers are beginning to use. A behavioral question allows the employer to know whether you have done something similar before and how you went about resolving it. It helps them understand your skill set as well as the level of experience in the field that you have. An example of a behavioral question is describe a time you had a difficult customer and how did you handle it? Behavioral questions are usually answered using the STAR method. STAR stands for situation, task, action, and result. So the purpose of this is to guide the employer through each step using a scenario of your example of a time you dealt with a difficult customer. This is a great tool to use when answering any behavioral questions. It helps to guide your answer and helps your focus instead of being too nervous to respond. Lastly, it is really important to practice. I can't emphasize this enough. Practice helps you easily answer when it comes to the actual interview. Practicing also helps you in familiarizing yourself with what you may be doing wrong and gives you the chance to improve on your interview skills. The more you practice, the better the result will be. Please note that when an employer asks you if you have any questions for them at the end of the interview, it is always good for you to ask them something. I usually like to prepare 2 to 3 questions I would want to ask the employer ahead of time. This is because it is not only the employer's chance to interview you, but your chance to see if this is actually the job that you would want to do. It also expresses your interest in the role and company. Always remember that there are specific questions you can ask and some that should not be asked. For example, asking about the salary is a huge no. Questions that you can ask are about professional growth, your day-to-day responsibility, and what they would look like. Basically, anything that shows your interest in the job and not the benefits of the job. So on the last slide, the last thing to complete your job readiness process is to have a list of references that, as Itzel mentioned earlier, you can use when and if an employer asks for it. This is good to prepare ahead of time because sometimes it requires a lot of work. Make sure to develop positive and professional relationships with individuals over time to establish that when you do look for a job in the future, you have a good handful of people you can use to provide to the employer. These individuals should be able to validate your work ethic and their professional relationship with you, as well as have worked with you for a set period of time to help the employer ensure that the reference you provided is suitable. In most cases, it is good to have a list of 3 references, and they can be anyone who you previously worked with in a team, a group project, went to school with, a teacher, a coach, a priest, even community workers that you've worked alongside with, and much more. However, family members are not usually accepted as references, hence why it is important to establish other professional references over time. And usually, as I mentioned, it's good to have at least 3 that you can have for any type of job that you would be applying for. So, to conclude the webinar, we would like to share some employment tips with you all. One thing that I would suggest is to do a bit of research and understand what your longer term goal is in regards to employment so that you're better able to break it down into shorter term goals and work toward the longer term goals. So for example, if my long term goal is, for example, to be an accountant, then my short-term goal would probably start as being starting off as maybe a cashier where I'm working with money and numbers, or even a data entry clerk where I'm inputting information into Excel spreadsheets. So these are experiences that can transfer over into my future long-term goal of becoming an accountant, but I'm already starting to work for it in my shorter term goals. So that's one tip that I would like to share with everyone. And Stephanie and Itzel, I'm not sure if you have any that you would like to share as well.
Yeah, for sure. So for me, I think I would say make sure to use all the resources that you have available to you. So here in Canada, we have many free youth employment services that can help you build your resume and practice for your interviews. This is something I didn't make much use of until later on, but I would definitely recommend it to use these resources if you're looking for employment at any stage in your career journey. They are available for you to use.
And I will suggest that before you send your resume, cover letter, or any email to a potential employer, first read it and then read it again and make the necessary edits to have an outstanding application, because this will be the first filter to pass to the next step for any job application.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing. So we also have the handout as I mentioned earlier, so please make sure to go through the handout and the resources available to you. And I'm going to pass it on to Stephanie, who will talk to you about upcoming webinars.
Yeah, so we hope you found this useful, and we invite you to join us for our next webinar, which is on Thursday, May 28th, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The topic is finding labor market information. So if you would like a follow-up to this, labor market information can help you make a good decision when you want to change jobs or move to a new place. And it can help you find out what the labor market is like for the job or city that you are moving to. We also would like to ask you to please provide us with your feedback. Your feedback is very valuable to us as it helps us develop content and improve our delivery of information sessions for newcomers to Canada. So with that being said, this concludes our presentation, and we would like now to take the time to answer any questions you may have. So we have one question here right now. It says, are there any green youth jobs in Canada, and how to be an environmentalist? So there definitely are green jobs in Canada. There is an organization funded by the Government of Canada called Project Learning Tree Canada. They do offer green jobs for youth between 15 to 30 years old. So if you're interested in that, that would be a great resource to look into.
So someone asked about when they should be talking about the salary in the interview session. So like I mentioned earlier, you're not supposed to ask about salaries during your interview. Sometimes employers will tell you that during the interview stage themselves. However, we're not supposed to. In most cases on job postings, they'll have like the salary that they would be giving you. If they don't, you're still not supposed to really ask about it. Usually when they do offer you the job, however, at that point they will tell you, this is the salary we're willing to give you. Please let us know if you would like to take the job. So at some point way before they do offer you the job, you will know the salary. However, we're technically not supposed to ask about it because it gives the employer the impression that we're just there for the money and not for the experience and the company itself.
Okay, so now we have another one that says, what should I consider as a short-term goal to become an IT in the long term? Well, you can get involved in anything related to technology and information, like anything that had to do with content development. Well, there's a lot of organizations that would take volunteers, for instance, to help them, as Stephanie mentioned, like as an opportunity to job shadow, and that would be a great way to gain experience. And later on, um, you might find other opportunities or employment opportunities in the IT sector as well.
Yeah, and
Just
just to
yeah.
add on, sorry, just to add on to what Edsel said, there are different ways to gain experience too. Like if you're starting your first job and you're looking to see what you can apply to, maybe anything that requires you working with a computer, for example, like retail stores that are specifically electronic based, they have basic IT level part-timers that work there that help with like basic computer issues. Also, like as an admin or a receptionist where you're on the computer all the time, you're kind of fixing basic computer issues at that time too. So those are skills that you can use to transfer over into maybe a future IT career. So these are just some examples.
Yeah, I just wanted to add if you are a youth interested in like IT for a future long term, in high school there's also a program that's become very popular. It's called STEM Club. So they do a lot of work with like technology and all of that. So that might be a good option to look into as well to start gaining experience.
Right, so there's another one that says, is my experience here in my country and in other country will be applicable as work volunteer experience? Well, definitely, because you'll be also talking about your skills that you gained during that volunteer work experience, and then how can you transfer it to your the possible job that you would like to apply here in Canada?
Yeah, and those are all considered any type of professional experience that you can put into your resume as well. So there's still skills that you can apply. Also, there's another question regarding sending a thank you email after an interview. Yeah, so this is definitely an important part of preparing for like your interview, knowing to send a thank you letter at least 24 hours after the interview. This shows that you're still interested in the position even after the interview stage, and it also shows that you're taking that extra step that maybe your other candidates would not be taking to engage with the employer and to keep that communication going even after the interview stage.
Okay, so there's another one about if I never worked before, how can I provide references? Well, as Catherine mentioned, um, as long as you have a work with somebody, it could be your teacher, it could be your counselor, it could be any community worker that just can talk about your qualifications and the experience that they've been having the time that they've been working with you somehow. So basically, just it's an opportunity for the employer just to get a better sense of who you are and how you work in different settings.
Yeah, so there's another question about how you can balance going to school and having a job. So again, when you're a student, it's not essential that you would have a full-time job. Usually the job as a student you would have is part-time with very minimal hours. And part-time hours could be like 3 days a week or even 2 days a week, which could include your weekend. So most students, when they do work while going to school, they would either work after school hours, so anytime after like 3:30, or they would work on the weekends to have that balance between being able to dedicate the work week from Monday to Friday for school specifically, and then having the weekend to make that extra money to put into their savings or whatever that may be.
All right, so there is another question about if I want to volunteer, do I also need a resume and or references? So in many volunteer positions, you will need to provide references. The resume might be not requested, so it might be something optional. However, it's a great opportunity for you to um, practice how to establish an outstanding resume. And in terms of the references, yeah, most of them will ask for them.
So there's a question here about what if they want to be a part-time swimming coach, what are the requirements? So usually for swimming, there is like first aid, CPR that you may have to do, and there are different levels of swimming lessons that you have to achieve. This can differ based on where you are going to take that job. So it's good to kind of look into that information and make sure. I'm not sure if Stephanie or Itzel, you guys would know anything else you need for that.
No, I think you got it right. So there's different ultras you complete and then training CPR. So that would be it for that type of job.
Yeah.
We have another question here as well. If an employer accepts us and we do not want to continue with them, how should we inform them? So here in Canada, it is typical to give a 2 weeks notice if you are leaving the job for whatever reason. And we would recommend to write like a formal letter saying that you are not continuing with them, and make sure to keep the relationship positive and end on a good note, because again, you never know when you might run into this person in the future, or if you need references, it's always good to end it that way. So a formal letter and 2 week notice.
I just want to add that, again, we do have a handout available to this webinar. Please make sure to go through those resources because they may help guide you in terms of preparing for an employment opportunity here in Canada, especially as a student. There's many services across Canada that are free and government funded that help you have access to supports that a lot of people don't in other countries. So make sure to really use them and take the benefits of them to be successful here in working towards your employment goals.
So I think that's it for the questions. If you do have any questions, we can take last questions right now. Also, once again, we would really appreciate your feedback. We are trying to incorporate more youth-related webinars, so if you liked it or if there's anything you would like to see, please let us know as well.
It says, is it normal to stay at work as overtime in Canada? It depends on the job and the employer. Some employers do allow for overtime hours. However, again, it really depends. And there's a certain amount of hours you shouldn't be exceeding in some contracts that you do sign at the beginning of the job. So it's always good to go through the employer's agreement when they do offer you the job to see if this is something you're allowed to do and if you have the opportunity to, if you're looking to make more money at that time.
So we do have another one about applying to the SIN number online. Yes, you can do that. You just need to go to, also in the handout, there will be a link that talks about just the SIN number and how to find a Service Canada. Right now, they're doing it online, or you can also call and just to ask for more information.
There's another question here. It says, after immigration for finding a job, how much language proficiency do I actually need? So this again will depend on the job. Some will require higher level than others, but we do recommend to enroll in English language classes if you need it upon arrival. So we do have the LINK classes that are offered free by the government of Canada. So that should be one of your priorities when you first arrive. And again, the language required will depend on the type of job you are applying to.
Yeah.
So I think that was it for questions. Again, like Itzel and Custer mentioned, we do have a lot of the information we covered on the handout, including for how to apply for your SIN. So thank you for joining us, and we hope you found today's session helpful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.